This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome. You've heard and read the spin the media and the politicians have put on the issues of the day. To get the correct spin on what's going on in North Carolina, let's introduce you to our panel of experts. Sitting in for John Hood, Becki Gray from the John Locke Foundation, former Supreme Court Justice Bob Orr, former Secretary of State and Attorney General Rufus Edmisten, and current NC Policy Watch's Chris Fitzsimon. We've got another good lineup for you this week, beginning with two vetoes Governor Pat McCrory issued and what implications they might create. We'll talk about vacancies at the top of our education systems and court matters that might impact our lives. Should be interesting, so let's get started. Last week, Governor Pat McCrory vetoed two bills passed by the legislature and hinted there may be even more vetoes coming in the future. First was the legislation that gave magistrates permission to opt out of marrying same-sex couples on religious grounds. 2 days later, he vetoed a bill that would give employers recourse against people who deliberately get hired to steal company secrets or spy on the company to dig up dirt. It didn't take the Senate long to override the magistrates bill, but whether it has enough votes for an override in the House is still in question. Becki, the debate over the magistrate bill is interesting. On the one hand, you've got those who say the magistrates swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and since gay marriage has been declared legal, they must marry same-sex couples. Now, on the other, you've got those like Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger who say magistrates have First Amendment rights too and should have freedom of their religion. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I stand on the sidelines.
With your friends, I know.
I stand on the sidelines with everybody else in North Carolina waiting to see what they're going to do with this. It has been an interesting debate. It's been an interesting week. It's been a week filled with very passionate debate. This is an issue that's very emotional for a lot of people, and what we've seen at the legislature is not many are neutral on this. Now, of course, as you mentioned, the governor vetoed this bill. They sent it back over to the Senate. Since it was a Senate bill, the Senate took the first stab at the override, and they immediately overrode it by the exact same vote count that they had originally passed the bill. It now goes to the Senate, and it was on the calendar earlier this week. I'm sorry, yeah, it's over in the House, and it's been on the calendar, but they have not taken it up yet. So, we'll see what they're going to do with this.
And Chris, that raises some interesting points. I mean, Speaker Tim Moore, they passed this bill the first time around, so in order for it to go to the governor's office, Speaker Tim Moore had this thing on the calendar several days last week, but it just never did get to the vote. Did he just not have enough votes to override?
Well, remember, it takes 3/5 of the members voting, president voting. So the vote by which the House passed this was very close to 3/5. There were 10 members that weren't there, about half and half Republicans, half Democrats. I think you'll see some people change their vote. There was a lot of confusion. House Rules Chair David Lewis actually voted against this on second reading and voted for it on third reading. I think this is a pretty clear case, though. I don't think there's much choice. What I found fascinating about the debate is nobody can answer the question, what's the difference if a magistrate has a religious opposition to marrying interracial couples? The bill then allows him or her to do that. And I thought those days were over. Everybody that shows up at an office who pays taxes deserves the same service.
Bob, here's the question I want to know. I mean, okay, so assume they override it. I expect there are going to be lawsuits resulting from this. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, there could be, but what concerns me is this is a divisive issue that did not have to happen. The magistrates are the only non-religious group in the state authorized to perform marriages. Why not expand the role of individuals who can marry so that you have a large pool, let people apply for it.
District court judges.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you can eliminate this issue altogether. And I'm not sure that magistrates ought to be marrying people on state time during the day anyway.
Rufus, there was some discussion about if this was upheld or overridden, it might even get down to the point where registers of deeds might say, I don't want to issue a marriage license to same-sex couples because of my religious beliefs. And that really could open up Pandora's box.
I've never heard of anything in my legal career that's as much as a Pandora's box as this thing is. The unintended consequences are unbelievable. And people can't get it in their head that marriage is not a religious ceremony unless you want to put icing on the cake. It is purely a civil contract And the magistrates, I sort of agree with my friend, the Chief Justice over here, that you just sort of pick them out at random. And I've seen weddings where they have these officiates and people that are sort of given the power to put people together. Why not do that? But at the same time, we are opening up the biggest box that's ever been for surprises all the way down the road.
Let's move to the ag-gag bill, as it's called, as far as employers are concerned. Didn't take the Senate or the House very long to override the governor's veto on that. What's the deal with this? The business community certainly did not want this bill.
Well,
they did want the bill.
They did want the bill. I think that what's fascinating,
didn't want it overridden.
What's fascinating about the governor's statement and the debate on the House floor to override this, where it was closer, not as close as I think a lot of people may have wanted it to be, was that there are still unanswered questions about the implications of this for elder care abuse. The Wounded Warriors folks came out against it and worried about the treatment in VA hospitals. Even the bill supporters said there are some things we would have done differently. We would have tightened up the language. We would have tightened up the liability for these employees if they do this. And I think the governor identified those, and I think it's a shame we couldn't have ironed all that out before it got to this point.
Becki, the governor has hinted that there might be some more vetoes. Are we looking at the 72-hour abortion bill that came to his desk this week?
That certainly is one of them that I think he may have been referring to. And another one is we've got a comprehensive gun bill that's moving through the General Assembly that a lot of people have some concerns about. That may be another one. And then there's yet another one, this omnibus alcohol bill, that there may be some things in there.
The governor's had 4 vetoes so far in his administration. What's his one-loss record? You remember?
No, he had the appointments to the commissions bill. They did not override. They just let that land. He only won.
That issue still hasn't
been
settled.
Well, that's right. It still hasn't been settled, but they didn't override that veto. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one they haven't overridden so far.
I'm on the ag-gag bill. The law's sufficient already. I have looked over and over again, and when I was Attorney General, I could find you a statute to handle every single thing they're talking about in that ag bill.
Yeah.
If you steal somebody's property, you're subject to be indicted. I think the Chief Justice will agree with me on that.
Yeah.
And that was the argument, that those things had been taken care of, that there were protections in place.
Well, if you like NC Spin and you want more, be sure to visit our website, ncspin.com, or NC Spin on Facebook. We've got exclusive video footage you can't get anywhere else, plus you can read perspectives from opinion leaders across our state. More balanced debate from the Old North State on ncspin.com or NC Spin on Facebook, or at NC Spin Tweets. When we come back, we're going to talk about education vacancies.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
98% of farms are family farms. Families that believe in values like hard work, faith, and integrity. Farmers care for their crops, land, and animals because it's their passion and it's the right thing to do. They take pride in raising healthy, affordable food for your family and their own. Their livelihood depends on it. At Farm Bureau, we believe in farmers, their values, and their way of life.
The cost of everything has gone up dramatically over the last 75 years. With one exception, keeping electricity affordable. That's the power of your co-op membership. Learn more at togetherwesave.com.
North Carolina's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, looking out for you.
Every year, North Carolina patients undergo 635,000 same-day surgeries. 72% of these surgeries are performed in our highest-cost hospital facilities, adding as much as $2,000 to every procedure. The state's outdated Certificate of Need law prevents competition from lower-cost, higher-quality same-day surgery centers, inflating healthcare costs and limiting patient choice. Tell state lawmakers it's time to lower healthcare costs now. It's time to make a simple fix to an outdated law, increasing patient choice and lowering healthcare costs now. You can help. Visit reformconnow.com and tell lawmakers it's time for a simple fix to an outdated law. It's time to lower healthcare costs now.
We now return to NC Spin.
Our education systems in North Carolina are looking new leaders. The Board of Governors for the University of North Carolina begins their search for a new president, and are questioning what kind of leader they should be looking for and asking input from the public. At the same time, the community colleges of North Carolina looking for a new president after Scott Rawls resigned to head up a college system in Virginia. And rumors persist that Superintendent of Public Instruction June Atkinson may not seek another term in 2016. Rufus, many are saying that potentially with our three top education systems looking for top leadership, might be a good time to rethink the entire governance system for public education in North Carolina. Do you agree?
Well, I don't like czars. They never work out very well in anything. Czar this, czar that. I think the biggest problem is K through 12. You know, the university can handle itself, community colleges can handle itself. There's where we have the problem. Always a governor is going to run on education. There's no doubt about it. Can't do a thing about that. And I think, though, we should give the power to the superintendent of public instruction, an elected official, and do away with the Board of Education.
But look at the governance of this thing, Rufus. You got the Board of Governors that's appointed by the legislature. You got the community colleges that are appointed by the governor and the legislature, and then the local community colleges have their own hierarchy and system and so forth. And then you got a state Board of Education and a superintendent. It's a mess, isn't it, Chris?
Well, it is a mess, but I'm not sure that anybody's come up with a better way to do it. And the governor of North Carolina, I think, needs to play a role in education. That's why he or she appoints the State Board of Education. I think the place that needs the most reform is the Board of Governors, because we literally have people lobbying for them, sometimes themselves, to be a member of the Board of Governors. All 32 of them are elected by the General Assembly. The governor has no say in it. I think that's the place where we need the most reform.
Bob, the big question is whether or not the UNC system should be looking for a change agent. That's the word that we've heard going around. What in the world are they talking about, and should we be looking for a change agent?
Well, as I understand it, higher education is changing dramatically across the country. And so looking for someone outside of the conventional academic hierarchy, retired generals, corporate leaders, I think makes sense because it is changing. It's going to change in North Carolina. I would agree, though, in part with Rufus's statement about the real concern is the K-12 education structure. I, on the other hand, would not elect the superintendent, and I'd keep the state board.
I mean, Becki, here's the question I think I'm asking is, why does the Board of Governors feel like it's necessary to hire a search firm? I mean, this is one of the top university systems in the state of North Carolina. People know this office is vacant. Why do we have to pay $300,000 for a search firm?
That's a very good question. And at the same time, you've got a bond out there for university facilities, and there's a budget getting ready to go through that the universities are asking for money. It seems to me that $300,000 could be better spent either fixing up some of the university buildings or going towards some of the academic programs. I mean, that's a great idea.
I got a really good idea for a president. Let's hire somebody who's been a president of a very successful private university, who's been in philanthropy, who's been a judge, who the current chairman of the Board of Governors said was doing a marvelous job.
And his initials are TR?
Well, the current chair of the Board of Governors said is doing a great job.
All right. We might need somebody that's aligned with the current Board of Governors.
Rufus, one of the consultants that was involved in all of this said that that there was widespread opinion that the Board of Governors and the legislature is actually interfering with the university system, and that may taint people who might want to become this next president. How big an issue is that?
They're allowed to interfere with the system, but they should not be getting down into the weeds. And the big problem is that they have never articulated the reason why they let Tom Ross go, and I doubt there is one, except we want our own, quote, person.
All right, what's the scoop on the situation with Scott Rawls? We know community college enrollments are down. He announced that he was going to take over the presidency of a big community college system in Virginia. But is there any particular reason going around why anybody knows why he's decided to leave, and how might that affect a new leader coming into that position?
No, that position he's taking, I lived up there with Senator Urban for a while, and that is the top one in the nation and would be considered an advancement for him. I can see exactly why, and I don't know the other reasons.
Well, we had a lot of politicizing. If you remember, Mike Easley was governor when Bob Scott stepped down, when the last president of the system stepped down, and there was a lot of politicizing about that appointment. Any indication might have that problem again?
I don't know of any indication of that, but it seems to me that the community college post would be a prime position for people across the country. I mean, it's a jewel in North Carolina's economy. With the problems that we've seen with the university system and some of the accountability problems that we've seen with K through 12, it would seem to me that the community college job would be the best one.
It's been the least controversial.
But it's also the least. You probably have the least control. You have 57. You have 57 schools. I don't think you have quite the power that you do.
Well, I've always aspired to be one of those local community
college. You put your name in the hat for the community college.
They've got a nice kingdom there.
Yeah, Rufus for community college president. After these messages, we're going to talk about court matters.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Where do you go when you need to know? ANC makes it easy for you to get the information you need to make well-informed public policy decisions. Our members are industry leaders who are ready to share their industry-specific insights with you. Want to hear both sides of the story? ANC members can tell you. Just use the ANC member directory as your guide or call us directly. ANC members have the knowledge, expertise, and perspective you need to create public policies that are good for North Carolina. We are ready for your call.
Medicaid system is not a perfect system. There are things that could be changed, but there's a lot that's going well with the system. Community Care of North Carolina is in place. It's a team of nurses, advisors, caregivers who help us out. We want to call and say, look, I've got Miss So-and-so here. She needs to have her weight checked each day because she's got congestive heart failure. Can you send one of those monitors out to the house and keep an eye on this and let me know if her weight goes up too much, because if it does, she's retaining fluid and she's going to be back in the hospital. We work together with them. That's a great system. It saves a lot of money. It's proven to work. We're not opposed to changing the things that need to be changed, but let's not throw out everything that we worked for the past 15 to 20 years.
North Carolina's Family Physicians supports Medicaid reform that builds on our state's foundation of medical homes. OurNCHealthcare.com.
Does your North Carolina business or organization have a story to tell? I'm Richard Campbell, and at Carolina Broadcasting and Publishing, we help tell stories that connect you to the people who will respond. We take the time to understand our clients' needs and what makes them unique. We craft their stories through the efficient use of words, images, and videos that resonate with their desired audience. We also know that a good story is incomplete without a call to action. On video, on air, online, and in print, from concept to final production, no one can help tell your story more effectively or affordably than we can. For special introductory offers, visit carolinabroadcasting.com or call 919-832-1416. Again, that's carolinabroadcasting.com. Let us help tell your story today.
We now return to NC Spin.
Not a week goes by without a court verdict or lawsuit that impacts the way we live and conduct our affairs. We always enjoy having Justice Bob Orr and former Attorney General Rufus Edmisten on our panel to discuss some of these more recent cases. Just this week, a 3-judge panel of the Court of Appeals confirmed a ruling that declared the legislature acted unconstitutionally in forcing teachers to give up career status or tenure. The U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said a trial court needs to review the court challenge to the new voting districts for Wake County's Board of Education, a case which challenges whether lawmakers deliberately tried to minimize urban voting to the advantage of rural votes. Bob Orr, of these two cases, which has the most potential impact in North Carolina?
Well, certainly long-term, the U.S. Fourth Circuit decision dealing with the Wake County Board of Education districts has the greatest potential long-term because, one, it's a federal appellate court, and it talks about political gerrymandering. There's a dissent in that case in which Judge Mott says, well, look, we're just talking about political gerrymandering, but it affects the election of people at the local level. It potentially could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So despite the importance of tenure to our teachers, the long term, I'd say the Fourth Circuit
Let's
case.
get on this tenure issue. Exactly what does that mean, Rufus? Do current teachers who have tenure get to keep it?
Well, you know, they've twisted that around so much. Tenure is not like a college professor's tenure. Tenure simply means that you have a right to have a hearing if somebody says you're a bad teacher and you got to go. And I don't know why they can't read the precedent. There's precedent in this. You cannot take away a contractual right that's inherent. Ask Gene Boyce.
But okay, so new teachers coming in.
New teachers are coming in.
And they don't have that opportunity.
They don't have that opportunity, and there's a question about that that's coming up in the legal system. And if you can do it for one set of people, you can do it for another. And you cannot do away with rights. The 10th Amendment, I think, isn't it, Justice, that says the states cannot do away with people's contracts.
Right. All right. And that was one of the bases.
Yeah.
In,
Judge Hobgood was in his big
But Chris,
decision.
these court cases on legislation are happening with increasing frequency, particularly in the last few years. What's the legislature's won-loss record on these?
Well, I don't know. It's not great, and I think we're going to see some more. I do think if the General Assembly overrides the veto of the magistrate's bill, we'll see a court case about that. I wouldn't be surprised if this abortion bill goes all the way through and the governor doesn't veto it, or if he vetoes it and it's overridden. I think we'll see a court case about that. So I think we're going to continue to see these.
All right. What about this business about the fracking being giving permits for fracking being withheld until the court case on that gets resolved? Mm-hmm. Any idea where we are on that, Becki?
Well, they were just beginning to issue permits to those who might be concerned, and then this court case came down, and so it's kind of put things on hold. The fracking doesn't seem to be moving forward as some people had anticipated. Many have said it has to do with the low cost of natural gas right now. It's just not, the thing that companies are wanting to invest in.
Bob, I can't let you not be on this show without asking you about the legislature's desire to have retention elections for our appellate court judges. What's your opinion on that?
Well, conceptually, I've been in favor of retention elections as a reasonable
Now, let's explain
system.
very quickly.
Well, a candidate would say, who's on the court, instead of having a named opponent from the other party or independent running against he or she, would simply sort of run against himself. I was telling you about Chief Justice Exum's statement about he'd rather run against somebody than against himself, and I think there's some truth to it. But this current bill is not well constructed. I mean, I think there's a much better retention system than what's in the current legislation.
All right, after these messages, we're going to ask the panel to tell us something we don't know.
NC Spin is brought to you in part by the North Carolina Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau and Agriculture. We keep North Carolina growing.
Hi, I'm Linda Loveland. I want the best for my kids. Feeding them foods they like within my budget is a priority. But what do we really know about these foods? North Carolina farmers and food experts give you a website to find it all. FeedTheDialogueNC.com, a place where moms like you and me can learn more about the foods we eat and the farmers that feed us. Check it out. Add your input and help feed the dialogue. Let's talk food at FeedTheDialogueNC.com.
I was asked by someone months ago, isn't Medicaid in North Carolina broken? And my answer was no. There are parts of it that need to be improved. There are parts that need to be changed. But the whole system's not broken. There are a lot of things that are working very well. What is working well is that we have a physician-led, physician-guided team effort. It's built on the concept of physicians having medical homes, patients having medical homes. And that system that we've created in North Carolina has done wonderful work. It has saved money, it's improved quality, and we have data that demonstrates that. That's what we need to retain. That's what we need to build upon. We don't need to replace that.
North Carolina's Family Physicians supports Medicaid reform that builds on our state's foundation of medical homes. OurNCHealthcare.com.
We now return to NC Spin.
All right, here we are at the segment of the show I like best each week when we ask the panel to tell us something we don't know. Chris Fitzsimon, we'll start with you.
Well, we did talk on the show about Governor McCrory and the veto battles. I've been really struck in the last week, not only with the governor's vetoes, but his language describing the General Assembly. He made an appearance before the Economic Development Partnership, where Sarah Vasquez at NC Policy Watch, the only reporter there, and he said that legislators are scared of their shadows. and that that they were not supportive of his bond issues, and it's sort of the strongest he's been, I think, attacking them, which I think describes how the relationship is going to be until his reelection.
Rufus, tell us something we don't know.
I am all in favor of the rare disease bill. Senator Lewis Pate and Representative Becki Carney, hallelujah, there's a bipartisan proposal to study rare diseases, and we don't really know it, but there are more rare disease victims that are children than there are HIV, cancer, and I am one myself with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I am very glad that we're moving that way. It's a great day for bipartisanship.
Interesting. Bob Orr, tell us something we don't know.
A couple of months ago, I had a chance to go to Israel and the West Bank, and was surprised to learn that the Christian communities in Israel and the Palestinian areas are diminishing in numbers. Christian communities are leaving in droves because of the pressures between the state of Israel and the Muslim community. And it surprises me that there's very little attention about that particular issue in North Carolina or the United States.
That is interesting because it's a topic we don't hear discussed very much. Becki Gray, tell us something we don't know.
Well, what you may believe is that your property rights are secure, particularly in light of annexation reform that took place in 2011, 2012. But in fact, your property rights are not secure in North Carolina. What we've learned is the DOT still has...
sleepless night.
Right. But, you know, and if it can happen to anybody in North Carolina, it can happen to anybody in North Carolina. But under the North Carolina MAP Act, the DOT can go out and condemn land that you can't develop, you can't do anything with, and they can tie it up for years and years and years. The value of your land diminishes really to where it's not worth much of anything, and you have no control over this at all. There are two bills in the General Assembly, one in the House that passed almost unanimously to repeal this MAP Act that would offer protections for people's property rights. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen in the Senate. Hopefully this will be done this session and people can once again sleep well at night, knowing their property is protected.
I've got one for you this week. You may have noticed my tie this week. I have got an Angus Barn Thad Ewer tie.
Oh, yeah.
51 years as Secretary of State of North Carolina. Immediately before you were his successor in the office of Secretary of State. Well, Thad was noted for his bow ties, for his straw hat, and for his seersucker suits. Well, as it happened, my family and I went out to the Angus Barn, which was started by Thad's son, and is now being run by his granddaughter, Van Ewer, who is, without any question, the queen of hospitality in North Carolina.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they really know how to take care of you out there. And I happened to see this Thad Ewer tie, and I had to have one. This is a treasure so far as I'm concerned. Well, we heard tremendous response to last week's show with the millennials, and want you to know that we're going to have them back again soon. You've heard our spin on the issues of the day. To stay informed all during the week, give your feedback, and read our weekly column. Be sure to visit our website, ncspin.com, or catch NC Spin on Facebook. And we hope you'll join us next week when we'll have more balanced debate for the Old North State. Until then, stay informed and watch out for the spin.
Join us next week and get the spin on issues facing our state.